Okay, so in this week's guitar lesson, we're going to learn how to play a harmonized lead over the entire fretboard using just one shape. It's 2 fingers, one shape, and we're going to repurpose that shape all over the fretboard and get these really cool sounds. And we're going to connect them back to basic chord shapes, so this will make it easy to use this stuff when you improvise. This is what it sounds like. So in this video, we're going to go through everything that I played there. I'll show you where all those notes come from. We'll connect them back to basic chord shapes so that you can be using this stuff by the end of this video when you're improvising. If you'd like to download the tablature and also get the MP3 jam track for this lesson, and also as an added bonus, I've done the whole thing over minor chords as well. So I have a video on that, and there's practice materials, MP3 jam track, tab, and all of that for the minor. If you want all of the lesson materials for this lesson, you can get those by going to activemelody.com and doing a search for ML120. Okay, so this song that we're going to be looking at is in the key of G, but you could play this in any key. We're not limited to G. I'm just going to be demonstrating in G, so our 3 chords we'll be playing over will be G, C, and D. But since we're using chord shapes and there's no open strings, this is super transferable to any key. So here's what's cool about this. This is why it's so easy. We're going to start with our G chord here using the E shape. And if I look at strings 4 and 3, it sounds like that, right? So I'm going to play just strings 4 and 3 out of this E shape, and I'm going to use these 2 fingers to do it. There's those 2 notes, right? Strings 4 and 3 out of the E shape. It's our G chord. But now you know where this harmony is coming from. Okay, so that's the first idea. Now look at that shape, because we're going to use that same shape for the entire solo over all these chords and all these different parts. This is the shape. So it starts to get really easy from this point on. So that's our first idea. Out of the E shape, if I look at strings 2 and 3, I have these 2 notes. There's that same shape, right? So I have it on strings 2 and 3, and I have it here on strings 4 and 3. So the first thing I want you to do, picture your G chord using that E shape, and practice just sliding into those harmonies. And now you can start to connect in your mind, okay, there's the G chord using the E shape. There's one of the harmonies, there's another one. Okay, 2 little harmonies that live inside this chord shape. Now, when you're improvising in a major key, one thing you can do when there's a chord that's hanging out for a while, like the G chord's gonna be here, you can go, if it's in a major key, you can go down 2 frets and play that major chord to get a flat 7 sound. It puts you in sort of a Mixolydian mode kind of thing, but we're not going to worry about that. All you want to think about really is the sound. And so I'm going to demonstrate this in a minute. I'm going to put on a jam track that has a G chord just repeating over and over, and I'll show you how I can go between the G and the F. Notice that sounds kind of like the song Tequila, but that's what's happening there is I'm going from the 1 chord down 2 frets, which is like it's flat 7. So if you take the principle of what we talked about for the G chord with our 2 harmonies and apply that to this flat 7 chord, I've got some more harmonies that I could play over my G chord. Hopefully you're connecting that. Hopefully you're getting what I'm saying there. So as I'm playing, notice I can walk it down 2 frets, and I'm walking it chromatically, so I'm playing the notes in between. So that starts to give me some options for playing harmony, and it's all really based on this G chord using that E shape. But hopefully you're starting to see, okay, I've got that, I can go down 2 frets, I've got these little harmonies on strings 4 and 3 and on strings 2 and 3, but they're using that same shape. Okay, so I have a jam track that's just looping a G chord over and over again. I want you to hear this F chord, even though the band is playing a G. This is what it sounds like. Okay, here's a G. See how that works? So I can go back and forth between my G and an F, and I can do that with my harmonies as well. There's a little chromatic walk. All right, so now let's get some more harmony ideas. We're gonna base them on another chord shape. So everything we looked at so far has really been off of this E shape. Now here's our next shape. We're gonna look at this. Little stair step shape. Now that's a minor triad, I realize that. In fact, it's a D minor triad. But if I play this triad when the jam track is playing a G, what I'm gonna get sound-wise is a G9. That minor triad is gonna color this major chord like a 9 chord, which is major. I know that's weird, and every time I bring this up in lessons, somebody always gets confused by it, but you're just gonna have to trust the process that, look at this E shape here, right? Where I've got these two fingers, this is how I first filed this away in my head, just to sort of organize it. So where I've got these two fingers on the 5th fret, if I come to that 5th fret, and I put my index finger down, and I play a little stair step shape, fret 5, fret 6, and fret 7, strings 1, 2, and 3, that would be a 9 chord of whatever this chord is. So in this case, it's a G9. But what I like about this from a harmony standpoint is look at strings 1 and 2. Just those two. Ah, there's that little shape again. So there's another little harmony using that shape. Let's look at strings 2 and 3. There it is again. So now I've got these harmonies to add to my collection of harmonies using that one shape. So if we go back to where we started, I'm starting to play music now using those two chord shapes. It's super simple, but it really enhances your playing when you're playing a lead and you're improvising. You want some little harmonies. I come to these all the time. Isn't that cool? Great sound. And it's the one shape. I'm using these two fingers for everything. Now, here's what's cool about this 9 chord. If I move it up 2 frets and keep that same triad, that same little stair step shape, playing that over my G chord, that gives me a 6 chord. This is the 6 to the 9. You've heard me talk about that all the time. You get your 6 chord, you go down 2 frets, and you're playing a 9 chord. You can do that with any of these minor triads anywhere on the fretboard. It doesn't have to just be this shape. It can be any of them on any strings. But let's just stick to these for now. So what you've got here on this 9 chord, you've got that up 2 frets. So now you've got all these options all over the fretboard basically for this one chord. So let me just demonstrate some of this with a jam track. We'll just loop that G chord over again, and I want you to hear some of these harmonies and how it relates to that chord. Okay, so I've got my G chord looping again, and what we looked at before was all the harmonies you can play off of this E shape, and then the flat 7. Right? Now we're going to introduce the 9 chord, this D minor triad shape, and the 6 chord up here. So here's the 9 chord. Listen to this. Isn't that a cool sound? So it's a G chord happening with a jam track, but if I play that minor triad there, I get that major 9 sound. And here's the 6. Listen to this. I love the sound of the 6 to the 9. Now that's the full triad. Now let's try just breaking that down into harmonies. Just strings 2 and 3 and 1 and 2. Back down here. So one other thing to point out is this is the same as this. It's just an octave lower. So hopefully a light bulb's going on. Oh yeah, your 6 and your 9 chord thing. It's happening again here on a lower octave. That's a different way of thinking about your 6 and 9 chord. It'd be coming out of a different shape, but it's the same minor triad idea. So now if we put it all together, we've got stuff like this. That's where I got that idea for the jam track. Okay, so now all I did in that jam track that I played in the beginning was I took these concepts that we're talking about and played them over each chord. So I did that for the G chord, but then when the song goes to the C chord, I just did the same thing. I wasn't super efficient with it because that's not the point. The point is I want you to get playing these and get these sounds in your head. So what I did was I took that G chord using the E shape, I came up and barred here on the 8th fret. That would make this a C chord, and I can take everything that I just did for the G and play it over the C chord. See how that works? So that's my 4 chord. I can do the same thing over the D chord, which is just up 2 frets from there. Back to the 4 chord. Back to the 1. Now, I realize that, typically what you wouldn't want to do is necessarily jump all over the fretboard, although you totally can, and I do that when I'm playing lead sometimes. But to make it more efficient, for the C chord stuff, for example, you might come here on strings 1 and 2 and start pulling them from other chord shapes. That's a whole other lesson. I don't want to get into all that for now. I just want you to get these harmonies under your fingertips and start using them. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take what I played in the intro, the little jam track, and I'm going to put it on the screen, the whole thing with tab, so that you can watch it. You can pause the video. I'm not going to talk over it. I'll just put that up there, and you can learn how to play it that way. Remember, as a premium member, you'd have access to the on-screen tab viewer where you can slow it down and you can loop it and do all that. And you'd also have the jam track to play it with. But for now, this will give you everything that you need to understand how to use this. If you like this video, please leave a comment. Let me know that. If you've had any breakthroughs from any of this, leave those as well. I think that's super helpful. Give me a thumbs up, and also subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't done that. I put lessons like this every week, and it's a great way to stay in touch. All right, we'll see you in the next video.